This is Project 1 for Physics 2010, The Physics of Baseball by Zach Moore. Pitching versus hitting. In each at-bat, the pitcher and the batter both use physics properties to try to overcome the other. Pitching. Pitching involves the sequential summation of movement, and this is when the pitcher is getting movement all throughout his body to increase the force behind the baseball being thrown. When a pitcher goes from the wind-up, he starts in a position where his entire body is used to generate force behind the baseball, and his body is used in a whip-like motion to sling the baseball forward. Angular momentum is also used in pitching, so theoretically a taller pitcher should have an advantage and throw harder than a shorter pitcher because the whip-like motion of their body will be longer and have more angular momentum. Pitching continued. Mound height also plays a role and will affect the speed of a ball thrown by a pitcher. Larger mounds give more angular momentum and works as a pivot point for that pitcher, and also makes off-speed pitches more easy to throw. Batting. Physics is used by each batter for each at-bat from the time the pitcher lets go of the ball until the ball either hits the ground or is caught by a player. Trajectory of batted balls. Home runs aren't always the hit to shoot for. Can initial velocity accurately predict the landing point of a baseball? In a closed system it could, but in real life, no. Air density, wind, spin of the baseball, and variation in the surface of the ball all play factors in the batted baseball and its trajectory. We will talk more about the surface of the ball later in the presentation. The swing alone in at-bat uses many physics properties. Being around baseball as a player, coach, and fan, I've seen hitting coached in many different ways. But no matter how hitting is usually coached, three things are always necessary in every swing. One of those is the fan of the swing, or the timing of the bat hitting the ball. Also, the tilt, or the plane of the bat through the strike zone, is always important in every batter's swing. And also the offset, or squaring up to the baseball, is taught many different ways, but is always important for each swing. In the previous slide, we talked about the fan, tilt, and offset of a swing during an at-bat. In this slide, you see a picture from Alan Nathan of the University of Illinois, and he got the picture from foxsports.com. You can observe a lot by watching hitters hit. In this picture, you see a Major League Baseball player, and you can see the tilt of his bat, also the fan or the timing of when he would hit the ball, and also see his offset in his feet. All of these together can determine where or what direction the trajectory of the ball will go to. In the picture, you see that the batter's tilt of his bat is slightly below the incoming baseball, which will give the ball a rise. If the tilt had been above the baseball, the ball would go down towards the ground when it was hit. You can see from the position of his hands and the position of the bat compared to the ball that the tilt of the fan of his swing puts him well out in front of the pitch, meaning he will more than likely drive the baseball into left field instead of directly back towards the pitcher. If he had been late on his swing, the ball would be drove into right field, or if his fan was perfect, the ball should return from the point where it was thrown. You can also see from his feet his offset or squaring up to the baseball. As a baseball coach, we teach our hitters to step towards where the baseball is pitched. The batter's front foot is positioned toward the back of the batter's box, meaning he is opened up to the pitch. If the batter's foot had been towards the inside of the batter's box, that would mean he had been closed off to the pitch. If the batter is doing this correctly, the pitch is probably an inside pitch, and he is opened up to turn and drive it into left field. Continuing with batting, the bat itself was changed in college and high school baseball. In 1999, the NCAA adopted the BESR, Ball Exit Speed Ratio standard of approving bats. Years later, the NCAA realizes that the bats were simply too hot. An increase in offense and home runs was seen with the BESR bats, and also an increase in player injury from batted balls. So in 2011, the NCAA replaced the BESR with the BBCOR standard, which makes metal bats hit somewhat around the same as wood bats do, which is with much less pop and with much less acceleration off of the bat. After the change from BESR bats to BBCOR bats in 2011, the NCAA realized that offense seemed to be lacking. In 2013, the entire NCAA playoff system only had 3 home runs hit during the playoffs, and they realized that the offense of the game needed to be increased. So the NCAA changed the baseball used from what they've always used, which is a raised seam baseball, to a flat seam baseball. The 2015 season was the first one where the flat seam ball was used in the NCAA, even though it had been used in Major League Baseball for a few years already. Using the flat seam baseball in the NCAA increased the travel of baseballs because the drag from the seams on the batted ball was reduced by 25%. The Coaches Association pushed for this change in the NCAA. this picture, you can clearly see the difference of the flat seam baseball and the raised seam baseball. On the left is the flat seam ball, which clearly has much smaller seams that are closer to the baseball, and on the right you see the higher seam baseball that has wider and taller seams, which would protrude from the baseball, and as the baseball flies through the air, would increase more drag. And the flat seam baseball on the left is much more aerodynamic, which would have less drag through the air. Fielding. So many young baseball players struggle with the simple pop-up in the infield. Lots of times, even at the professional level, you see infielders make mistakes and misjudge the simple pop-up that seems to be a routine play most of the time. These high pop-ups can have loops and cusps after it reaches its apex, which puts the ball on its way down to the ground. And these loops and cusps are from the intense backspin placed on the batted ball from the tilt of the batter pushing the ball high into the air with all that backspin. This can result in difficulties for players to catch these balls. Catchers are even taught to turn and face the fence when a pop-up is hit somewhere around home plate, because the intense backspin on these balls sometimes will push the ball back towards where it was hit instead of away, as most people would assume. StatCast. StatCast is a system used to track all players on the field each time the ball is hit. StatCast is a system used by Major League Baseball, and they are trying to implement the system in each stadium all across the nation. On October 26, 2014, Lorenzo Cain, a center fielder for the Kansas City Royals, made a terrific catch. The reasons why he was able to make this catch were recorded using StatCast. After the ball was hit, his first step was just 0.37 seconds, and this shows his reaction time to the batted ball. And he accelerated to 20.7 miles per hour in only 3.5 seconds on his track to catch the baseball. Major League Baseball can even track the most efficient route to each baseball, and his route efficiency was 94.7%. Continuing with the fielding, focusing in on outfielders. Outfielders use what they call a crow hop to throw the baseball, which serves the same process as the windup for a pitcher. What they do is they get their entire body moving in the direction of which they're going to throw the baseball, and because of their sequential summation of movement, their velocity of the throw is increased, which helps make the long distance throws for their position. Baseball and physics. There's a lot that goes on during a baseball game that the average fan does not catch, but the three main points of baseball all revolve around physics. We teach our baseball team that there are three things that you can do with a baseball while on the field, and those three things are: you can throw it, you can hit it, and you can catch it. All of these involve physics.